Introduction to the Strange Immortal Lord. This is a world similar to the end of the Yuan dynasty and the beginning of the Ming dynasty, but it is a fairy god version, with ghosts and monsters everywhere and demons rampant. Xian crossed over and found himself lying on the bed, surrounded by the bamboo lady, Gu Jingnu, maiden 2, and Qing umbrella girl who had been sucked dry and revealed their true form by him. P.S. There are already 10,000 copies of works. 2 old books, Eternal Life Strange and The Lord of the Secret Witch, with decent quality. Welcome to subscribe. Welcome to bookmark. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The author is working hard to save the manuscript, and the babies they like will be collected and brought home first. We look forward to the future together. Chapter 1. I Nandaji. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Yuan Dynasty, Jiangsu and Zhejiang Province, Hangzhou Road, Xiantang County. In a poor thatched cottage in the east of the county, Xian's face was filled with an incredulous dullness. He sat on a cold couch, his eyes gradually shifting. Before long, he scanned the houses that displayed poverty everywhere, and finally his gaze fell on the cargo truck standing in the corner of the wall. Cups, plates, dishes, grass shoes, scissors, pearl strings, hairpins, paper kites, and mud dolls. There are a variety of goods, dazzling and attractive, with a fan inserted on top. The fan reads in 2 lines. Dan Zixing roars, "Don't shake your future. I am a salesman." Xian instinctively uttered this sentence, as if illuminating his brain in an instant. It roared inside, and memories surged like a tide. Not long after, the dullness and unfamiliarity on his face began to disappear, replaced by a ghostly fear and paleness, wishing to curse at the heavens like anger and helplessness. No wonder Xian, he first knew he had traveled. His original name was Xian, but he was a merchant who lived in Xiantang and both of his parents died. That's it. What really scared Xian was that he learned from his original memory what a crazy and terrifying world it was. It is indeed ancient and seems to be the Yuan dynasty, but this Yuan is not that Yuan. This dynasty is called the Great Yuan Dynasty, which spans several continents and has unlimited territory. It is said that, where the sun rises and where the sun goes, it belongs to us. Just this dynasty, oh no, it should be said that the whole world is not right, with ghosts and monsters everywhere, and supernatural beings everywhere, as if anything can become a spirit. What is even more terrifying is that the ruling class in this world, whether it is the emperor or officials, or the immortal monks, are no longer humans, they are all demons, spirits, or the flow of evil gods. They were originally humans, but after gaining strength through cultivation, they all became another ferocious species. Whether it was the human race or other races, they were regarded as pigs, dogs, and leeks by them, and they were kept in captivity, harvested, and devoured at will. During the heyday of the Yuan dynasty, there seemed to be many constraints and rules, so the common people still had a chance to breathe and reproduce. In recent years, the Great Yuan dynasty has fallen apart and smoke of war has risen, revealing signs of the end of the dynasty. Rulers of all sizes in various regions have also begun to show their true nature and unsightly eating habits. Just like the magistrate of Xiantang County named Lu Hualong, who revealed his true colors half a month ago, he turned out to be a monster with a strange shape, resembling a tiger but not a tiger, and had bat-like wings. That night, this tusk spewed out a mist and surrounded Xiantang County, dividing it into his own territory and captive tens of thousands of county residents. The magistrate of Lu County is fond of cannibalism and has a great appetite. He is also afraid of devouring the people of the county. Therefore, he sends ghosts every day to hold copper gongs and sharp blades, push carts and bronze cauldrons, and each household comes to cut meat. According to the head count, for an adult of 3 liang, children can be exempted. After cutting, hemostatic medication will be given, and it will heal shortly after application without damaging human life. There will also be a strange grain called Tai Sui Valley distributed, which has an extremely delicious taste and can even fill the stomach. In just a few days, it can replenish the cut flesh and blood. According to legend, with such demonic county magistrates, tens of thousands of county residents should have fled with their families even if they did not rebel violently. However, not a single household in Xiantang fled, and even a large number of county residents accepted relatives and friends who had fled from outside. The reason is also simple, because in the current world, county magistrates who offer compensation for cannibalism can gain a good reputation, compared to cruel and shameless local officials and even high-ranking officials in the frontier. As for escaping to the wilderness, deep mountains, and valleys, it is even more impossible. It is extremely dangerous, all of which are demons and monsters, and are filled with a lot of inexplicable strange and mysterious phenomena. Staying for a long time will undoubtedly lead to death. Due to these reasons, Lu Hualong, a human flesh county magistrate, has a great reputation among the 9 county magistrates under the jurisdiction of Hangzhou Road. Due to his love for thigh meat, his subordinates often cut swords from here, earning him the nickname of Cutting the Thigh County Magistrate. What kind of world is this? The demon county magistrate who sends a ghost to cut a piece of meat from your thigh every day can still be grateful and has a great reputation. Gu Xian cursed loudly and instinctively wanted to ask if there was any hope for ordinary people in this world. Where are the righteous immortals? What about the heavenly Tao axiom? Quickly, I learned the answer from my memory again. There are indeed many paths of cultivation in this world that allow the human race to cultivate and possess extraordinary power. As long as there is talent in finding the right path, one can ascend to heaven and transcend the world. For example, Lu Hualong was originally a human race, but was born with tiger stripes and tiger eyes. After achieving success in cultivation, he was conferred the title of county magistrate by the imperial court. Just for some unknown reason. Most practitioners, no matter what they originally were, as long as they gained strength, eventually became corrupt. There are exceptions, but very few. When Gu Xian received the memory, he suddenly realized that his original body also had a talent for cultivation. Extraordinary perception. This is the talent that Gu Xian awakened 1 month ago. There is a strong perception of everything extraordinary in the world, whether it be living or dead. With this talent and the status of a peddler, I have accumulated many strange and peculiar items in my original body. At the same time, I am carefully exploring how to officially embark on the path of cultivation, transforming from a weak human race to a genus of immortals. Not to mention, it has really found some paths. After all, this world is ruled by those demons, immortals, and gods. Therefore, whether it is the court or other forces, when recruiting subordinates, they will also choose those who have talent to cultivate. Especially in the turbulent times, the competition among heroes has given rise to many forces, expanding and recruiting people and horses. The type of personnel with the most urgent demand are scouts, meticulous workers, and intermediaries. The forces and organizations that intend to expand will first spread their nets and develop a large number, and then undergo formal screening and absorption. Originally, due to their status as a salesperson and some strange fame, they gained advantages and even received invitations from more than one organization. What's fatal is that this guy has taken it all. Gu Xian's face turned pale and his eyes were full of inconceivable roast. Good guy, most of them are domestic slaves, right? At this point of receiving memories, Gu Xianyuan thought it was enough to explode. Not long after, when the last memory surged and it was also the moment when he fully adapted to this new body, it was extremely difficult to express, and the lingering feeling left by last night's bed surged in. Gu Xian later realized that he looked at the bed, which was in a mess, unsightly, and vulgar. On the bed that should have only been covered with blankets and pillows, there suddenly appeared a bamboo lady, modeled bronze mirrors, ancient paintings of a beautiful woman, and a tattered green umbrella. There was also a broom wrapped in colorful silk thread that fell under the bed. These things, without exception, are the strange things collected by Gu Xian. Everything has its own mysteries. Lady Zhu, who was originally just a tool to dispel the scorching heat, can be seen everywhere, which is not uncommon. However, this one is different, as if it has become a monster. As long as you hold it to sleep, you can meet a goddess in your dream, relieve your longing, and release your desires. The cost is just a few days of exhaustion. It is said that the tattered green umbrella is also a fairy. Opening it up and silently reciting, "Pray for the meeting of the mother," a beautiful woman in green clothes will immediately appear under the umbrella, whispering softly, very tempting. The remaining bronze mirrors, pictures of ladies, and even brooms all have similarities. The original awakening talent lasted for a month, and after putting in a lot of effort to collect these 5 strange things, one can imagine what kind of person he is, a lecherous young man. Better than this, I also perished here. The last memory in Xian's mind. This guy accepted invitations from multiple meticulous forces and realized that he could set foot on the path of cultivation no matter what. Last night, he was extremely excited and unexpectedly awakened his second talent. Extraordinary charm. At that moment, his body began to emit a strange aura and fragrance, which seemed to have infinite attraction to extraordinary things. Although it didn't emit far, it also made all the strange things in the house go berserk, showing their collective form and rushing towards him. So, I was sucked dry and died. Since that's the case, why do I now only feel that dragons and tigers are fierce, and my whole body is comfortable, while most of these strange things are useless? Xian first had a strange expression on his face, followed by a puzzled expression. Genshin Impact is not actually a fool. Although he is extremely lecherous and collects these things, he also knows that no matter which one he uses, he will pay a price after being comfortable, and will be drained of a lot of essence. Being lethargic for a few days is a small matter, and what's scary is that it will definitely shorten his life. Among the 5 strange objects, 4 of them carried more than one human life. The most brutal one was the ancient mirror, which contained mirror slaves who slaughtered at least a dozen people and ate both men and women, making it very cruel. Xian was extremely concerned about his life, so after receiving it, he miraculously endured it for a full month without taking any benefits. He only frequently used his first talent to summon the fairies inside to meet and overcome his addiction. According to the movements and usage from last night, Xian should be an adult at this time. But at this moment, when he perceives himself, the feedback he receives is that he is full of energy and has increased his lifespan by 1 year. On the other hand, those strange things had become ordinary objects in his perception, with strange and supernatural elements inside. They completely disappeared from the book garden www.zhaoxuan.com. Of course, there are exceptions as well. That broom is still a wonder. Xian suddenly reached out and picked it up, then softly shouted in a passing tone. "Sister Bai, don't panic. I have regained my clarity and can regulate my internal qi. I'm just confused about what happened last night and don't know why. Please come out and let me know, Sister Bai. Perhaps it's fear, or the friendship we talked about in the past month." As soon as he finished speaking, the colorful threads on the broom flickered, and then a woman dressed in white with a slightly upturned appearance and a shy expression appeared. This woman is a broomstick spirit, but she has never killed anyone. She is naturally weak and likes to clean the house, insisting on being clean and spotless. The previous owner was a poor scholar surnamed Bai, so she also followed her surname Bai. There was still fear in his eyes, and after appearing, he instinctively took a few steps back before bowing to Xian and telling him about everything he had done last night after his talent burst out and he fell into a coma. Originally, after Xian awakened his charm, he did initially let all the strange things go berserk, appearing to be trying to suck him dry, and he had really mastered it by dividing his entire body of essence and blood. Watching the young man become a human being, the fairies were content to leave. Unexpectedly, the young man's body also had a suction force, and in the blink of an eye, he sucked them back. Not only did he retrieve all their essence, but he also sucked them away, leaving only the broomstick spirit alive. Upon hearing this, Gu Xian remained calm and couldn't help but marvel in his heart. So is it a blessing in disguise? My second talent is not just charm, but also comes with the anti-suction ability. It has a deadly attraction to extraordinary creatures, and can even devour and seize their supernatural powers. Isn't this the legendary fox technique of picking yin and tonifying yang? I have become a male Daoji now. Chapter 2. The Ghost's Day Tour. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Nandaji is not bad either, as long as his talent is not passive. I was lucky this time and didn't get sucked dry, but instead gained a lot of benefits. Next time, if I can't control the inexplicable aroma and attract a real demon, how can I be good if I eat it raw? Gu Xian muttered while silently feeling his own body, wanting to fully adapt to it while also understanding the changes within. Maybe it's good luck, or maybe it should be. The first innate talent of the original body, extraordinary perception, was precisely applied at this moment. He only remembered many key points and mysterious changes in his body, including some traces left after the accident last night, which also emerged at this moment. Before long, Gu Xian's face showed a sudden expression, and his heart both rejoiced and sighed, saying, "It turned out that this was the case. His original luck was really not good. His charm talent, like his perception, could be sent and received by the heart, but he couldn't control it during the first awakening. However, the initial range was very small. If there were not many demons or spirits around him at that time, or if there were only one or two strange things, he could still pass through peacefully. If there was only one, the charm's inherent healing power could help him gain more benefits. Unfortunately, he was a lecherous young man and had accumulated a total of 5 strange female charms specifically designed to absorb essence and blood, resulting in his loss of life. And my soul is possessed and reborn, as if amplifying all the talents within this body." Although there were still some doubts about the last thought, Gu Xian was already very certain, only unsure how much it had been magnified. At least the perception range and the power of replenishment are determined to far exceed the original owner. And the benefits gained from last night also emerge in detail at this moment, in addition to the 2 benefits of being full of energy and increasing lifespan by 1 year, I also feel several strange forces lingering within my body. There are 3 types. Summoning wind and rain, painting skin, and bewitching. The first type can evoke a drizzle of sweet rain, which should be a joint gift from Lady Zhu and Lady Qing umbrella. The second way is to draw a picture of a woman's skin draped over her body, which must be from that painting of a noble woman. The third type can bewitch some weak-willed creatures, probably from the ancient mirror demon. Unfortunately, they are all temporary abilities that will dissipate completely within 12 hours. Gu Xian thought it was a pity in his heart, but in fact, he was not very disappointed. In fact, Gu Xian was pleasantly surprised when he initially sensed his enchanting talent and even temporarily plundered the talents of supernatural creatures. Even if he is not yet a practitioner, he can vaguely guess that this is probably very contrary to the heavens, and he is even more convinced that this must be the result of him amplifying his talent much after giving up. The essence of his original body is only to replenish some essence. After all the thoughts fell, Gu Xian suddenly looked at the broomstick spirit and asked, "By the way, since they couldn't control themselves to suck on me, how did you suppress it, Sister Bai?" Upon hearing this question, the broom spirit's snow-white face blushed twice, stomped its feet, feeling both embarrassed and angry, and said, I don't know why, I can't tolerate the scent in your body. It's just that those 4 witch girls are fierce and have cut your body into 4 parts. I can't snatch them, I can't get on this bed. Gu Xian originally thought that the broomstick spirit had some wonderful ability to resist his charm, but he didn't expect it to be because of this, and he was momentarily speechless. Watching the broomstick spirit seem too embarrassed and angry to retreat, Gu Xian quickly stopped and began to seek advice on some matters related to cultivation. Although he had all the memories of the original master, he was still a beginner in this area, otherwise he wouldn't have died so wrongly. He hoped that the multifaceted and meticulous work could be accomplished, allowing him to embark on the path of cultivation, but unfortunately, before it could be completed, he lived and died happily. Unfortunately, his inquiries were also in vain. The broom sweeper looked over with a strange expression and then replied. I'm just a broom. How can I know about immortality? I thought you should know, master. So every time I'm called out, I only talk about love and don't ask about cultivation. It was the female slave in the ancient mirror who made a slip of her tongue last night and shouted, if she could swallow a mortal like you, who has 2 talents, she might also enter the Tao and become a practitioner. She should be aware of some spiritual practices, but her master has called her out in the past, only praising her beauty and asking her to dance with the fairy to show you. Cough, someone is coming. Sister Bai, let's go home and rest first. Upon hearing this, Xian's expression changed halfway. Although it was all about the dark history of his original body, now that his soul and flesh were in harmony, he also felt embarrassed. He was such a young man, playing really fancy. After speaking out and driving the snow-white and delicate young woman back to her broom, Xian stood up straight and got out of bed. Then he opened the door latch and found a small courtyard outside. There were water tanks, tables, benches, and other objects in the courtyard, as well as a semi-dead old locust tree standing there. Naturally, the shabby room in the poor courtyard was left by his original parents. This is the second left wing of Qiantang County, Huaihua Old Lane, which is not a very affluent civilian area. Xian did not lie when he drove the broomstick spirit back. His extraordinary perception range was not small, and he did indeed perceive someone coming. Before he actually appeared, the noisy and piercing sound of copper gongs had already resounded, causing the entire old alley to be restless. Neighbors, houses, and courtyards ran out one after another. Many voices of discussion drifted into Xian's ears. Isn't it so unlucky? I just had a circumcision yesterday, so why did these plagued ghosts come again? Did they hit our Huaihua Lane again? It must be true. The lottery is already mysterious. Within the county, there are often 52 districts with 6 chambers, and the boundaries are repeatedly drawn. Our Huaihua Lane has only been lucky for the first time. No problem, just cut it. I still have another leg to use. Anyway, if it doesn't save my life, I'll have more Tai Sui millet. My little kid's appetite has increased a lot lately. Alas, who would say we all have a family to support? It's not like that kid from the Gu family who has enough to eat alone and doesn't starve his whole family. He even has spare money to bribe the ghosts not to cut his flesh. He's also someone who can't make a living. Cutting his flesh only hurts so much. The Tai Sui millet he exchanged for is so delicious, but he hasn't tasted a single bite. It's not just that kid who does this. I've heard that those wealthy people in the city, as well as some lecherous people, are also accustomed to bribing ghosts not to cut their flesh. They are all afraid of pain and willing to sacrifice their blessings. If they were to be punished with a knife, they would receive twice as much Tai Sui millet as us. Shoo, it's not worth it anymore. How dare you talk so much? As Xian walked towards the courtyard door, he listened to these discussions and furrowed his brow slightly. Memories related to them also emerged one by one in his mind. When he woke up, he knew about the county magistrate's meat cutting and the administration of medicine and food. As for the so-called lottery, it was another provocative operation by the county magistrate Lu Hualong, who cut the shares. Following the pattern of 6 chambers and 50.2 neighborhoods in Qiantang County, they drew a quarter of the area every day to harvest, while the rest of the territory was empty-handed. In addition, the practice of meat cutting was also graded. Those ghosts were ordered by their masters to be the most ruthless towards the southerners, with the most meat cutting and the least compensation. Ordinary Han people were better, while those with lustful eyes were better. As for the wealthy families in the city, they simply exempted this matter. In the eyes of ordinary people, there are two types of people who are afraid of pain. Xian, as an ordinary Han Chinese, always used his silver money to bribe the ghosts to avoid cutting meat, and he never asked the Tai Sui millet steamed to eat. Of course, it was not that he was afraid of pain, but that he noticed something was wrong. At this moment, Xian happened to open the gate of the courtyard, and the lively scene that was originally separated by a layer of courtyard walls suddenly became real, hitting his eyes. The alleyway, which was already not very spacious, was crowded with many people from beginning to end, and dozens of young children ran back and forth to play. Regardless of gender or age, they looked at the entrance of the alley, eagerly waiting for something to arrive. At first glance, the eerie signs that his original body had seen were also seen by Xian. The first thing I saw was the neighbors, regardless of age or gender, each with an excited and energetic expression. It should be noted that this is a chaotic and disaster year, and although it is not a place of refugees or famine, it should not be like this. And the second one is those lively children, who are all chubby and white. As they run around, each one carries a wonderful aroma of millet, pure and passionate, which makes one's fingers move uncontrollably, wishing to bring these ginseng doll-like children over and take a few sips. This scene will come true in the next moment. At the entrance of the alley, the sound of copper gongs was approaching, followed by a dozen or so men and women who were almost indistinguishable from their neighbors, knocking gongs, wielding knives, and pushing carts into the Huaihua Old Lane. They were divided into two rows on the left and right, with a bronze cauldron standing one person tall on each cart. The woman on the left first made a movement, but for some reason she had such great strength. She effortlessly lifted the lid of the cauldron, which weighed dozens of pounds. In an instant, more than 10 streams of saliva filled the old alley with the aroma of millet. It was visible to the naked eye, and in the blink of an eye, it filled the entire alley. The already restless children immediately cheered and gathered around, chirping and shouting. "Have a delicious meal to eat now. It's so fragrant, I want to eat it. Sisters and sisters, please give the girl a bite first. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, and me, I'll take one bite too, just one bite." Those strange women who were still expressionless before their breath, when they saw the children coming together, they all smiled brightly, picked up one of them, sucked a few mouthfuls on the children's soft faces, and then went into the cauldron as if they were not afraid of being hot at all. They squeezed out rice balls that were crystal clear and shining brightly, and put them into the children's mouths. At the same time, the men on the right also started to open the bronze cauldron. This time, they saw a dozen fresh blood and flesh pouring out. They didn't need to shout. The neighbors who had been roast were all smiling now. They came forward enthusiastically and showed their legs. If you don't look at the scene and only listen to laughter, anyone would think this is a beautiful scene of distributing food and welfare. At this moment, Xian, standing at the gate of the courtyard, furrowed his brows and felt a chill surge from his feet, causing him to shiver involuntarily. His extraordinary perception gave a clear impression. Those men and women who appear to be human unexpectedly have green eyes, black aura hovering over their heads, and smiles resembling puppets. Upon closer inspection, the man's left hand has no little finger, while the woman's right hand has no little finger, clearly indicating that they are all demonic spirits like ghosts. These evil spirits are walking under the scorching sun at the moment, feeding the children strange rice and vegetable roll while sharpening their sharp blades, cutting off pieces of thigh flesh and throwing them into the bronze tripods. As a newcomer, Xian, who had already digested his original memories, thought he had adapted. But seeing this scene at this moment, he still couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Anger and fear burst out at the same time, and he couldn't help but murmur. What kind of world is this? If there are practitioners, what kind of practitioners are they? Chapter 3. The Rise of Rebels from All Sides. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Huaihua Old Lane is not big, and the gong and drum convoy quickly arrived in front of Xian's yard. In a daze, he was already filled with ghosts in front of him, and at the same time, two completely different fragrances entwined and drilled straight into his nose. There seemed to be an extraordinary power inside, causing Xian's craving insects to move greatly in his stomach, and saliva flowed between his teeth. What made him feel disgusted was that this instinctive craving insect was not only aimed at the fragrant rice, but also at the pieces of stinky meat cutlets. Xian opened his eyes and indeed saw the tai sui rice and thigh meat slices inside a bronze cauldron. What really made Xian raise his eyebrows when he didn't want to watch the meat slices was that the crystal-clear rice grains suddenly turned blood red after he fixed his eyes on them for a few more times. At the same time, he felt a strong and inexplicable feeling in his heart. This rice cannot be eaten, and eating it will surely shorten his life. Tai sui millet cannot be eaten, as its original form is already known. Short lifespan is the latest achievement of its extraordinary perception. However, before he could see more, the male and female ghosts had already gathered around. Xian had a clear perception of what kind of temperament these ghosts had before their death, and after transforming into ghosts, they seemed to have followed their masters. Their eyes were full of twisted expressions, filled with a frenzy of restraint. As before, after Xian turned in the money, he let go of his thigh. Just as he left, it was clearly intentional, and the voices of discussion penetrated into his ears one by one. He's a wealthy salesman, but his savings shouldn't last long. How to deal with those who repeatedly fail to cut their shares and have no money to donate? The master said, "Reward us. I want to eat his thighs, both legs. I want to eat his tender face. Humph, I hate little white faces the most in my life. They are all rough embryos. Don't miss him. He has been contracted by our sisters in advance. Look at his fresh appearance. At least we can let our sisters eat raw for 3 days without dying. It's very comfortable." Obviously, Xian has been regarded as a plaything by these vicious and twisted male and female ghosts. He listened silently and then returned to the room expressionlessly. Until this moment, he finally entered a state of mind, fully understanding what kind of world it was and what kind of world it was, and gradually adapting to his new identity as Xian, the Great Plains Dynasty merchant. The original owner is also aware of their own situation and has strategies in place to deal with it. Nothing else. It is precisely those servants with multiple surnames who are meticulous in their work. He was already a person who had awakened his talent, and he was different from the common people. Although he couldn't find a way to cultivate temporarily and couldn't join the sect of immortals, as long as he relied on his extraordinary perception to join an organization, he could easily solve the covetousness of those ghosts. More importantly, he can take advantage of the opportunity to access the world of cultivation that he desires so much. For this reason, Xian accepted all the invitations sent through different channels without omission. Of course, whether you can receive rewards and benefits from these organizations depends on what value of intelligence you can offer as a scout. Xian, who has not provided any intelligence yet, can only be considered as a peripheral. Oh no! Not even on the periphery, just an unknown person. To be meticulous in multiple aspects is indeed a bit reckless. But my 2 talents of super sensation and charm are indeed very suitable for this profession. At the thought of this, Xian immediately took action. He usually has 2 sales routes as a salesman. One is to wander the streets and sell to the neighbors in the county town, the second is to go up the mountains and down to the countryside, and sell it to the town residents and villagers. Previously, the demon county magistrate besieged the city with mist, and he could only use the first method. Later, the county magistrate Su saw that there were many more ferocious rulers around him, so he simply let go of the demon fog and let the county people stay. Not only did they all escape, but they also spread other good and compassionate names. What is worse than worse? That's it. Although he can leave the city, Xian has no intention of leaving this time. He must be in the city to search for a top-notch, intelligent secret recipe. In a moment of thought, Xian changed into a brightly colored short coat, put on a cap, and hung a special necklace full of eye beads and runes around his neck. Then he walked to the corner and picked up the dazzling cargo carrier. Fortunately, his muscle memory is still there, otherwise he, Xian, really wouldn't have this smooth ability. As I passed by the broom tied with colorful silk threads, I seemed to remember something again. With a flick of my foot, I put it on the bed and threw it down, saying, "But I have to work hard, Sister Bai, to clean up my shabby house. A small thank you is not a sign of respect." After speaking, this guy went out. As soon as he left, the green smoke drifted, and the petite and filial young woman appeared. She didn't care about the servant asking him to clean the house, but only looked puzzled and said, "Thank you." Fortunately, she was also intelligent. As soon as she uttered the word, she saw her own soul dwelling lying on that extremely messy and unattractive bed. Thinking back to her recent conversation, she immediately realized it. Unable to help but blush, he spat fiercely and said, "This young man is becoming even more shameless." Spit it out, the young woman had intended to endure and not easily fulfill that man's wish. How could she do it? She was naturally pure, and within a few breaths, she started to be busy like a resigned person. At this time, Xian had already entered his role seriously. Carrying the goods out of the door, he picked up a tambourine and shook it while starting to shout, but it wasn't just random shouting. What came out of his mouth was a rap with a full tone and rhythm. In addition to his goods, the content is also mixed with other boasting. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the young man from the Gu family. There are all kinds of miscellaneous items and treasures available, and one can even praise the immortal scriptures and understand feng shui. Can write essays and make contracts. Specialized in treating cows and horses, capable of treating children." This guy was swaying and singing more and more, and he became more and more enthusiastic. In no time, he made several business deals. No one would doubt him even if they went to see him. He was just a handsome young man who was often liked by big girls and young women. Quickly, Xian wandered through remote streets and alleys, and suddenly entered the main street of Qiantang County. Only a corner, originally just a faint and lively scene, suddenly became solid. What caught his eye was a picture of the market. Although bustling, it cannot be compared to the modern commercial streets of the past. But those shouting and selling, tea houses and restaurants, and the traffic of cars and horses completely eliminated the last bit of discomfort in Xian's heart. He let out a resigned sigh, then grinned and shouted, "Specialized in treating cows, horses, and children," and merged into the crowd. About half an hour later, a tea shop in the corner of the main street was bustling with activity. Because the tea here is cheap and convenient to move around, it has gathered many people, including street vendors, hard-working foot traders, and some rough and crazy people from the martial arts world. I don't know if it was intentional or unintentional, but one of those peddlers, who looked very handsome, started showing off and quickly seduced this group of people to talk and share their experiences with each other. First of all, there are those peddlers and villagers who come to the city for business. Every word you say, I say. "Hey, have you heard that Yanji town, 30 miles outside the city, was hit by a disaster the night before yesterday? A hanging ghost from somewhere broke into the town, and overnight, hundreds of people in the whole town were hanged to death on the beams of houses. It was really tragic." What a tragedy. Fangma township next to Yanji town was targeted by a group of wild bandits who drank blood and spent several days quietly building a fly god temple outside the village. On the day the temple was completed, the fly god demon descended, treating everyone in the village, regardless of gender or age, as a breeding ground for the offspring of the demon. That scene. Nauseating. This is actually not bad, at least there was no pain. Do you know about Fuyang County next door? The county magistrate Lu Hua didn't know if his cultivation had gone wrong or if he was nearby. At midnight, he suddenly went crazy and turned into a terrifying demon with no skin on his head and a mouth all over his body. That night, he spat poisonous water and surrounded the county town to prevent people from going out. He then began cannibalism. The court's rescue officers arrived on the third day to kill him. At that time, the population of the county was less than half. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. Shu. I'm not going to die anymore. How dare I say that? I thought the ghosts wouldn't come out during the day. What's wrong with this? Compared to other evil spirits and demons, County Magistrate Liu is already considered a good person, but just a little quirky. At this point, to avoid taboos, those foreign-foot merchants quickly continued. What they share, however, are also rumors that have occurred in farther and broader territories, all of which are rumors of rebellion and rebellion. Cough cough, one by one, I came from a long distance. I believe you don't know yet. This great Yuan dynasty has added another group of rebels. That person is called Ni Wenjun, who first fought under the name of the Red Turban Army. Later, he inexplicably gained the support of the legendary Yin Mountain Ghost Clan, and under his command, there were hundreds of ghosts who were extremely cruel. They successively attacked cities such as Hanyang and Xianyang, and heard that even the great Yuan royal family had killed many. It's just average. Have you ever heard of Lu Fudong's notorious name? He started his rebellion very early, with the banner of Tiger Ben 3000, straight to the land of Yuyan. Dragon Flying 95, reopening the sky of the Song dynasty, intending to restore the Song dynasty. It is rumored that there is also support from immortals and gods behind him, and there are more than one. Only I have heard of the two major immortal and Buddha lineages of Maitreya Temple, and Red Lotus Sect. It's ordinary, but among the rebels, Zhang Shiqing is the most powerful. I heard that his bloodline is special and he seems to be related to the dragon nest. His army has more than one real dragon, and he can move rivers and clouds without hesitation. I heard that Hangzhou Road has been targeted by him, and maybe one day he will attack Qiantang County. These rebels often sound like those who have no ulterior motives. I came from Chuzhou, which has now been occupied by a chaotic army. Their leader is called Zhu Hongwu, and behind them lies a mysterious immortal god. I don't know, but I know that his subordinates are talented, and there are many arrogant people, probably not from the pool. Chapter 4. All Laws and Gods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the corner of the tea shop, Xian, who had a rhythmic and profound reputation, was listening attentively at the moment, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. No matter how large the territory of this Lashizi, Daoyuan dynasty is, it is probably useless and destined to collapse and change dynasties. Ordinary people have no scruples about talking about rebels, which shows that they can't hold on for several years. If according to my past life history, among these rebellious and chaotic armies, the one who succeeded should be Zhu Hongwu, the so called one bowl at the beginning. At this thought, Xian shook his head. Although there are some similarities, they are clearly very different. Not only is this element not that element, but in the original memory, there are also many mysterious aspects in the dynasties counted from the Great Yuan dynasty to the front, which is enough to make Xianxia not blindly apply the history of his past life. Due to these reasons, Xian is now in a complex state, both frightened by the terror here and excited to explore the unknown. And what made his smile even more brilliant was that after listening to the strange things in the countryside and the rebellious army, the people of the martial arts quickly began to talk about some anecdotes and wonders in the field of cultivation, making Xian prick up his ears and not want to miss even a word. Alas, no matter how much we gain in the world, we cannot escape life, aging, illness, and death. If we can live forever, it would be better. Unfortunately, I have no such good fortune. I have only heard that we mortals, whether born or by chance, have awakened our innate abilities and are allowed to be favored by immortals and accepted as disciples. I have heard of such things before. A woodcutter went up the mountain to play chess with two gods, and lived in a daze for 100 years. It was a strange thing. I heard that there was a scholar in the western border of Zhejiang who fell into a well. Not only did he not die, but he also married the daughter of the Jing Dragon King, and became an immortal as a son.in.law. These are too vague. I have heard that there was a leprous child in my hometown who was once suffering from abscesses. Fortunately, he met an immortal in the wilderness and was called the Shenyang Immortal. He was the cave owner of Shenyang Cave, with a lifespan of 800 years. The child had stepped on countless pieces of dog poop and was able to learn from him. Ha ha ha. Brother, don't envy it. The child's blood and bones may have turned into feces and drowned. The so-called Shenyang Immortal is actually an 800-year-old ape demon, accustomed to ravaging cannibalism in Guizhou. We, the children of the martial arts world, already have a path. Why bother to seek these elusive things? For example, in Shaolin Temple, we have heard of the secret divine skill I Jing in the temple, which can transplant the tendons of demons and evil spirits into the body, use it to cut hair and wash the marrow, transform into a new body, and be no different from immortals. In addition, in the Casic demon subduing technique, one only needs to engrave the demon subduing divine pattern all over their skin, resembling a cassock, and can also possess extraordinary powers. Upon hearing this, Xian almost missed holding the teacup. Good guy. What is this I Jing? Obviously, it's not just about turning the secular world into a demon and immortal version, but also the martial arts world. However, before Xian became interested in these strange martial arts, an old man in the crowd shook his head and said, "Immortals are hard to find, but these exotic martial arts are not easy to learn." The Beggars sect, which is the most powerful and has the most disciples in the martial arts world, has created martial arts such as the dog beating stick, lotus falling, lotus palm, bronze hammer hand, 8 immortals palm, and so on. However, in order to cultivate these, the Beggars sect disciples must first become proficient in picking life and cutting, and blood sacrifice to the 100 ghosts. What is the cost? No other, human nature. I have all listened to the advice of the old man. It is even harder for ordinary people like us to become immortals than to ascend to the heavens. If we work hard to search for it, it will either be a heretical path or a wicked and evil method. Even if we embark on that path with this, the outcome will not be better. If you really want to achieve success, you may still need to seek the 10,000 Dharma teachings, awaken your talents, find the corresponding spirit god Dharma hall, and then enter the Tao. At first glance, what the old man said made perfect sense. Even Xian was thinking of nodding. But soon there was a rebuttal in the crowd. As far as I know, both the Fuyang County Magistrate and the Qiantang County Magistrate are members of the 10,000 Laws cult, and they happen to believe in the 4 spirits of the cult, except that one follows the unbounded spirit god, and the other follows the gu-eating spirit god. When the magistrate of Fuyang County attacked, he ate half of the population, and Qiantang County. The misfortune of the wealthy sheep is unexpected. The 10,000 Laws sect has been the national religion since ancient times. How could a yellow-mouthed child dare to talk nonsense? As they were about to start a big argument, the tea shop owner seemed to think of something and slapped his head, interrupting them directly. Today seems to be the day for Lu County Magistrate to worship the Gu Spirit Temple, and I heard that they will give out Tai Sui millet and rewards. Oh, it's almost time. Almost shortly after the boss finished speaking. At the other end of the main street in the county town, there was a sudden uproar, and soon many ghosts dressed in yamen clothes and military armor rushed out. The street was brutally cleared, and then a grand procession, beating drums and gongs, walked from the position of the county yamen. On both sides of the team, there were yamen officials throwing out bounties and bags of pre-packaged Tai Sui millet. Sprinkle while shouting. Today is a great day of good luck. The county magistrate personally worships the food gu spirit god, and the people of all counties can go to observe and worship. Today is a great day of good luck. The county magistrate personally worships the food gu spirit god, and the people of all counties can go to observe and worship. When oppression, rewards, and food gather together, civilians have no resistance. Amidst cheers, the sacrificial procession surged wildly, and Xiantang County seemed to enter a festive atmosphere. Xian is also among them. In fact, this is the scene he has been waiting for. Although he has received invitations from more than one meticulous organization, he has not yet submitted any intelligence, not even from the outside world. Naturally, he cannot benefit from these organizations, let alone truly enter them and embark on the path of cultivation. In front of him was his opportunity, as the task lists issued by those organizations were numerous, cumbersome, and varied. However, there was also a rare similarity, which was that they were extremely interested in Xiantang County Magistrate Lu Hualong. As long as Xian can pry into some relevant and visible intelligence, he can pass the level. However, at this moment, Xian was still pondering the path of cultivation that the old man had mentioned while following the sacrificial procession forward. Strange martial arts. 1Fa Jiao. There are two types in total, the former is temporarily unavailable, press and do not lift. The latter, as Xian began to carefully review his physical memories in his mind, his expression gradually became more complex. After all, it was a half-life memory of a stranger from a different world, which was previously only digested like a bolt of a jujube. It will take some time to completely transform into the true Xian in this world. 1Fa Jiao, also known as Wanshan Jiao. It seems that it existed in ancient times and continued to expand and grow. Finally, during the reign of Emperor Wu of the Great Yan Han dynasty, a protector surnamed Dong in his sect completely trusted Emperor Wu, deposed hundreds of schools of thought, and revered 1Fa alone. Although it rose and fell repeatedly thereafter, 1Fa sect mostly occupied the position of national religion, and even today's Great Yuan dynasty is no exception. At this point, the idea still doesn't seem too surprising. It's just a sect with a huge influence and occupying a position in the national religion. Quickly, Xian knew more, and his surprised expression grew stronger in his eyes. The reason why Wanfa is also known as the All Gods is that this religion seems to have no taboos. As long as the immortal gods who join will accept it and give corresponding titles, the number of gods worshipped in this religion is not much, and even the most knowledgeable Wanfa worship is difficult to fully understand. However, overall, it seems to be divided into two schools. Spiritual gods and flesh gods. There is only one master of the 10,000 Dharma sect, who also has titles such as Tai Shan Jun and Haotian Supreme. Under my command, there are numerous powerful immortals and gods under my command, with heavenly soldiers and generals to drive them. It sounds like this is like a past life. Heavenly Court. As soon as the last thought arose, Xian shook his head and said no. Where can the Heavenly Court cultivate believers like Cannibal County Magistrate and Severed Thigh County Magistrate? Just as he thought about these, he suddenly realized that he had already arrived at the sacrificial realm with the team. A luxurious and eerie temple suddenly appeared ahead. Not to mention its strange shape, the materials used to build the temple are mostly black stones, broken iron, and other materials. They are also engraved with disgusting textures. Above the temple, there is a rusty bronze plaque with 5 tadpole seal characters engraved on it. Although the original self boasted about being able to write miscellaneous essays and contracts, searching for the Shuyuan website www.zhaoshuyuan.com was actually a formality. Essentially, he was considered semi-illiterate and couldn't recognize tadpole seal script. But at this point, there is no need to know, and one can guess. The inscription on the plaque should read, Food Gu Spirit Temple. After many county residents approached, they all looked embarrassed and clearly refused to enter. But under the drive and temptation of those ghosts, everyone cried and still cheered as they entered. Xian also carried a cargo carrier, swaying and following, with a strong curiosity in his eyes. This temple was built for a while, but its original body was frightened and it never entered the inner world to observe. Therefore, it is unclear what kind of immortal god the so-called goo-eating spirit god is. The next moment, the answer is revealed. As soon as Xian stepped over the threshold, his eyes immediately reflected a statue as high as 4 or 5 zhang, all made of iron. The god sculpted has a tiger head and a human body, with sharp thorns on the back, wings, and unparalleled ferocity. It is also dressed in a colorful Taoist robe, and its posture seems to be that of a true spiritual god who punishes evil and promotes good, and consumes goo to drive away demons. At this moment, Xian stood in front of the temple. On the face, there was a complex expression that was indescribable. It was originally terrifying, but after being reborn, there were brief experiences, memories in my mind, and a series of strange anecdotes that I had recently heard. They are all reminding him very clearly that in the world he is currently in, there is a strange and reasonable sense of what happens and what appears, which is not surprising. Even though ancient ferocious beasts that are good at cannibalism. After a sudden transformation, he became a goo-eating spirit god, worshipped by the human race and worshipped by incense and fire. Since the spirit god transformed by this beast holds a certain position in the 10,000 laws heavenly court, it is needless to say what this heavenly court looks like. Chapter 5. Xian wants to pick up the corpse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Watching the cast iron statue of a deity dressed in a Taoist robe, resembling an immortal, Xian felt both absurd and deeply interested in the teachings of the 10,000 laws. The ancient ferocious beast with a love for cannibalism, Quoki, transformed into a spiritual god under its packaging and was worshipped by the human race. What about Master Wanfa? What is the true appearance of its body? What about the other gods in the sect? What ancient evil gods or evil beasts are they all? Of course, what caught Xian's attention the most was this obviously mainstream path of cultivation in this world. Is it all like this? Just now, the old tea shop owner said that those who awaken their talents only need to find the corresponding true spirit hall to enter the path of cultivation. Obviously, both Fuyang County Magistrate and Qiantang County Magistrate were formed in this way. The latter is rumored to be born with tiger stripes and tiger eyes, so their corresponding deities are goo-eating spirits. And what about me? There are 2 talents of super sensation and charm. Is it that the corresponding spiritual god is the Qingqiu 9-tailed fox? Do you really want to be a male Daji? No, no. If unavoidable, where should we go to find the fox temple? Xian gradually revealed his disdainful and upright nature, shouting that he didn't want to be a male fox. He was already calculating how to find a way out. Coincidentally, the next moment he listened to a vivid example. But it was the Temple Zhu, who was clearly also a ghost, who was probably ordered by the county magistrate to play the role of a storyteller, in addition to the Temple Zhu. It's just a story it tells. It is precisely Lu Hualong, who is known as the county magistrate of Shugu, who has made great achievements in the first half of his life and has a glorious history. Speaking to the host, there may have been a lot of embellishment in the content, but many county residents, including Xian, listened with great interest at this time. My master is the son of the Lu family in Gusu. One day, my mother dreamt of a goo-eating spirit god. When our master was born, he had tiger patterns all over his body and a pair of tiger eyes that could subdue hundreds of ghosts. When he was still in his infancy, he could ignore the difference between yin and yang and see monsters and monsters. His tiger power could deter demons and ghosts within a radius of 10 miles, ensuring the peace of the house. At a young age, he showed supernatural powers and was a young hero. He sought refuge with Jui, subdued demons, and blessed his own side. Later, he became a jinshi, with both civil and military skills, and was renowned throughout the 9 villages. Finally, guided by the spirit of eating goo and achieving the right results, one can become extraordinary and free from vulgarity in no time. In the crowd, Go Xianzheng attempted to trace the traces of Lu Hualong's cultivation through the meaty praises of temple blessings, and planned to quietly speak up to guide and bring a rhythm. But at this moment, his face suddenly changed. Suppressing the thought of looking around and continuing to use one's extraordinary perception, carefully sensing and discerning the sudden appearance of extraordinary auras around. In the original perception, there were no extraordinary people within a few hundred meters, all ordinary county residents. As the temple continued to preach more and more, it became even more exciting. Unconsciously, it attracted a large number of non-ordinary beings to approach. In Gu Xian's keen sense, these extraordinary beings, who were unaware of whether they were humans or ghosts, would overflow with strong malice every time he heard the three words, Lu Hualong, outside the temple. They were pretending to be resting, dressed strangely, as if the caravan from the western border of Hunan was all extraordinary, without exception, and their carriage contained something unknown. It was cold, stiff, lifeless, and devoid of any movement or movement. Could it be something like zombies? And there are more than a dozen beggars in the corner who have abnormal qi and blood in their bodies, even worse than tigers and leopards. Can't they be the beggars' sect? The scariest thing is the group of performers who came shouting, gathering men, women, and children. When sensing the third group of people, Gu Xian's heart was filled with warning signs and he dared not look any further, so he quickly restrained his gaze. In just this moment, he had not even seen the faces of those people clearly. In his mind, he first sensed clusters of wriggling flesh, decaying lymph nodes, and other things. At the same time, his own body was also restless, as if it was about to become diseased. This prompted him to not only retract his gaze, but also temporarily shut down his sense of transcendence. I muttered to myself, what the hell is that? As I realized something was wrong, I wanted to retreat first. However, Gu Xiangang had just left the temple and had not yet had time to retreat behind the others, causing a sudden revival. The county magistrate is here. The common people avoid and recite their names, praising my lord's kindness. With the shouts of the ghosts, another more luxurious procession of ceremonial guards arrived from the Main Street county government. No one, including Gu Xian, would go to see those ghosts, and even the bounty was not immediately snatched away. Instead, their eyes were fixed on the divine spirit in the midst of the luxurious procession. Behind the layers of magnificent curtains, a tall and imposing man sat proudly. No need to draw inspiration, Gu Xian could also feel unprecedented danger from him and immediately guessed that this person must be the Cutting the Strand County Magistrate Lu Hualong. What surprised him the most was that Lu Hualong was not wearing the county magistrate's robe, but was wearing a colorful and seductive floral robe. This robe would look vulgar even if worn by a different woman. Lu Hualong not only wore it, but also had no lining. He was dressed in that floral robe, revealing most of his robust body. However, at this moment, no one paid attention to these things, and everyone's gaze was drawn to two completely different ghosts on the terrace in front of Xinyu. A ghost, born exceptionally well, wearing a snow-white robe. If it were intact, anyone who saw it would praise a good scholar, but now this scholar is disheveled, with a face covered in blood, holding the area where his nose is missing and wailing. Another ghost, born extremely ugly, with a face full of black hair and a fierce and cunning face, was rewarded and surrounded by treasures and beauties, feeling very unhappy. Without waiting for everyone to take a closer look, Lu Hualong, dressed in floral clothes, seemed to have some kind of evil disease outbreak. There was a foreign object stirring inside his robust body, and in the blink of an eye, tiger stripes appeared. There were sharp thorns on his back, and a lump of flesh bulged under his ribs, popping and shattering. His membrane wings seemed to be about to extend, and his face seemed to turn into a tiger head. He let out a roar and then suddenly rushed out, wielding a whip soaked in salt water and fiercely whipping the white-clothed scholar. After finishing the whipping, his face finally showed a cheerful expression, and he then rewarded the ugly man with a bag of wealth. This scene left the county residents stunned and puzzled. Until a lowered voice came from the crowd to dispel confusion. The scholar is called Gongsun Xing, who has been a good friend and military strategist of the county magistrate for many years. Mr. Gongsun has contributed to the county magistrate's current achievements, but for some reason, he has become a villain and a ghost, and will continue to suffer this calamity. As for that ugly man, he is a notorious cunning lazy man and rogue villain from Qiantang. How could he enter the eyes of the county magistrate and receive so many rewards? I see that the county magistrate seems unable to suppress the changes. Should we escape? Where can we escape? There is a more peaceful place within 1,000 miles than Qiantang. Although the magistrate of Lu County has become eerie and loves to eat meat, at least he can protect our lives. Seeing and hearing these things made Gu Xian extremely uneasy. He could guess that something was wrong with Lu Hualong. Compared to the past, his temperament had greatly changed, and he had inexplicably developed quirks such as good floral clothing, good appetite for meat, and evil loyalty and treachery. It seemed as if he was gradually losing control of his demonic body. Looking at the malicious supernatural beings constantly approaching in the crowd, Gu Xian suddenly remembered a rumor he had heard before. The magistrate of Fuyang County followed the unbounded spirit god, who was also one of the 4 spiritual gods, inexplicably went crazy and ate half of the county's population. A bad guess emerged in an instant. Not good. At the moment when Gu Xian realized something was wrong, he immediately began to move. The footsteps were exceptionally fast, so we retreated behind everyone first. Still feeling insufficient, he retreated to the street corner in a few seconds. And his inexplicable omen came true in the next moment. The group of people dressed in bizarre costumes, including men, women, and children, who were previously perceived by Gu Xian, suddenly walked out of the entertainment gang. A tall and thin old man with white hair and childlike features shouted loudly at Lu Hualong. I have heard of the famous magistrate of Lu County for a long time. In such a chaotic world, it is impossible for ordinary people to shelter a peaceful place. We came from a long distance and presented a song called Spirit and Meat Song to the county magistrate, praising our merits and virtues. After speaking, there was no waiting for Lu Hualong to respond. The people behind it took out instruments such as bone whistle, bone flute, guqin, and kong ho, and began to play. In an instant, Gu Xian's super sensation was passively activated. A strong omen came to my mind. I can't listen to that piece of music, I can't break free, my soul and flesh will collapse, and my desires will surge. Without hesitation, Gu Xian pulled off a piece of cloth to block his ears, then grabbed a handful of wet mud and stuffed it tightly. Despite this, the final sound that entered his ears still made Gu Xian's heart beat wildly and his desires stir. And when he looked back, he suddenly saw a scene resembling a Hell's Carnival in his eyes. All the county residents, even those ghosts, are immersed in the illusion of desire and swaying wildly. And the team playing the music, where else are there people like that? The so-called men, women, and children are clearly demons with human skin on their heads, or in other words, they are all human beings due to cultivation. Nowadays, they all look the same. Pale all over, but there are flesh and blood growths everywhere, whether it is an embryo, a chimeric organ, or swollen 5 limbs, and so on. Influenced by the music they played, Lu Hualong, who was already somewhat uncontrollable, finally fully revealed his true form. Amidst a roar that shook for 10 miles, a tiger-shaped demon resembling the goo-eating spirit god in the temple, still dressed in floral clothes, leaped out and began to devour the surrounding county residents in a frenzy. Except for those like Gu Xian who can escape quickly or are already on the edge, there is now an opportunity to coax them to escape from all directions. The rest of the county residents who joined in the fun were hardly spared. Upon seeing this, the elderly leader couldn't help but be overjoyed and patted his hands, saying with a smile, "It should be like this, eat more, eat well, the food goo spirit fetus in your body is the great tonic. Let's take action. First, cut off his limbs and lock his spine to prevent this scumbag from escaping from Qiantang. After all, he is practicing the goo-eating immortal technique, and his Taoist conduct is much stronger than that of the Fuyang County magistrate. With a wave of his hand, the other two groups also appeared. First, those beggars who were originally sickly suddenly flew to the sky and fled to kill Lu Hualong. Then came the wandering merchants, copper bells ringing, carriages breaking apart, zombies covered in decay and foul-smelling bodies jumping towards Lu Hualong. Gu Xian fled with other county residents while constantly looking back and listening to these things. In an instant, he suddenly realized. The tragedy in Fuyang County before was also caused by this group of people. What's the reason behind it? It seems that they are specifically hunting down the demon officials of the Great Yuan dynasty, treating their demon bodies as a great tonic. Is that how Lu Hualong fell? At this moment, Gu Xianqiao's senses had already opened up. As soon as he thought about it, he couldn't help but sense Lu Hualong, wanting to know how the county magistrate who cut off his thigh looked. Unexpectedly, this peep immediately made Gu Xian's face turn pale, and he let out a puff, vomiting and bleeding. Gan Lin Yang. How terrifying. They are already tiger demons. Do you still want to pretend to be a pig and eat tigers? Gu Xian's roast has not ended yet. In front of the temple, there is a mutation and rebirth. The demon Lu Hualong, who was originally extremely insane and devoured the county residents, suddenly swelled several times as beggars and zombies attacked. In the blink of an eye, a tiger-shaped demon almost as big as a temple could be seen, overlooking the entire Qiantang County. With a flap of wings behind it, a bloody storm condensed and blew all the beggars and zombies away in the blink of an eye. Then came the wild laughter. Ha ha ha. I'm curious. Where did the demons and monsters come from to kill my good brother? It turns out it's the remnants of your eternal life cult, along with a few useless beggars and dead corpses. I am also incredibly foolish, thinking that I, like that foolish guy from Fuyang County, cannot suppress the spiritual fetus, leading to a split heart and soul, entering the fire demon, and being easily slaughtered by you. I would also like to thank you all for this. The spiritual god He Lao family looks down on the dead bodies of beggars, but there are 10 immortal believers' flesh and blood, coupled with the Tai Sui Gu Bu, nurtured in a child's body in a county, which can help me obtain advanced source materials and techniques from He Lao family. Today is auspicious, and I will completely stabilize my state of transformation. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Lu Hualong's pair of membrane wings with sharp claws suddenly retract, and with a hissing sound, he actually pricked his own ears deaf. Zhaozhuyuan.com. Then I heard him howling up to the sky, which could be heard throughout Qiantang County. In Gu Xian's incredulous gaze, all the young children in his sight collapsed to the ground, one by one colorful, body like glazed jelly, and emitting a strong meat aroma. Goo insects crawled out of their bodies, flapping their wings together and flew towards the direction of the goo-eating spirit temple. And there, a brutal slaughter is unfolding. Across several streets, Gu Xian, who had escaped from life, looked at the area from afar. From the perspective of perceptual feedback, the balance of victory and defeat is completely biased towards Lu Hualong. His demonic body, immersed in slaughter, was still draped in that floral robe, but at this moment, it was not at all funny, only heart-wrenching. Gu Xian has no doubt that if Lu Hualong were to let go and eat, he might be able to consume the entire county's population overnight. Normally, he should hurry home and pack up and run away. Inexplicably, a strange light flickered in his eyes, and his gaze shifted to the surrounding area of the temple. Previously, he looked at it truthfully, remembered it clearly, and there were no errors or omissions in his perception. In this siege, the main force and controllers were obviously the cultivators who called the Eternal Life cult remnants. And those beggars who practice eerie martial arts, and people from Xianxia who control zombies. Are all cannon fodder minions. The first encounter resulted in heavy casualties, with many being swept away in corners by the goo-eating storm and suffering serious injuries. Life and death are unknown. If I could pick up 1 or 2 leaks, first interrogate the secret recipe, and then touched the body. In this demonic and chaotic world, I shouldn't be blind again. Coincidentally, the temporary supernatural powers I swallowed and sucked in one by one are about to disappear. I can't afford to waste them. In a flash of thought, Xian also suddenly moved. Chapter 6. Dog Beating Stick Method. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At this moment, the demons from both sides of Qiantang province are fiercely fighting, and the Beggars sect and the Corpse Runner are under the control of the remnants of the Eternal Life sect. Initially, they suffered heavy casualties from a fierce blow, but still rushed to the battlefield to assist after breathing for breath. The cries of killing echoed throughout the county. Of course, there are also some unlucky people who lost their ability to take care of themselves in the first wave. For example, at this moment, Xian followed his perception and saw the corpse driver. In the dark and damp alley, on the edge of a dirty ditch, there lay a half-body of a person, with only half of their cross-dressing Taoist robe left, unable to wrap around their bloody waist. What's even more unfortunate is that this person lost not only the lower half, but also one hand and a small head torn apart by the storm, scattered somewhere. Looking at his facial features, he is a young man with an ugly appearance. The person next to him is not prominent, but the nose with a big black mole on the thumb is impressive. The remaining exposed skin follicles are grayish-black, hard and cold to the eye, with some ghostly rune-like texture engraved on the blood, and a decorative piece made of metal armor wrapped around the mouth. This person seems to have exhausted his mana, unable to summon the remaining body. He can only shake his armor and emit an eerie tone similar to a whistle, driving a zombie with only one leg left to jump around and retrieve the body from the stinky ditch. That zombie seemed to have transformed from a human race, just different from ordinary people. It was bloated and obese, like a rhinoceros or a cow, and the ground was trembling as it bounced around, indicating that it must have been a fierce man before death. Not long after, it was really called to pull out one hand from the stinky water and approach the point where the corpse driver broke. With the whistle, a strange scene occurred. At the rough gray-white fracture, suddenly stretched out red veins resembling blood maggots, emitting a strange red light. In the blink of an eye, they pierced the severed hand, pulled it together, and quickly returned to its original state. Then, there are other remaining bodies. As he gradually regained his full body, his complexion became even more disheveled, his body trembled without saying a word, and the sound of vomiting kept ringing in the alley. Every time he vomited, as his armor shook, he could see pools of foul-smelling and viscous corpse liquid mixed with dozens of white, fat, and plump corpse maggots landing, corroding the ground and making a hissing sound. Obviously, repairing the body comes at a considerable cost. As a result, the corpse driver kept muttering and cursing at Liuying, without even saying anything repetitive. Xian doesn't understand Xianxia dialect, and can only hear phrases like pig's head, dog's day, and hot egg. It's probably not just cursing Liuying, but even those eternal life cult cultivators. If he accuses them of not collecting good information before taking action, this time they will capsize in the sewer. Although it's a corpse, this guy can still curse. There may be danger, change it. In a moment of thought, Xian gave up on targeting this person. Silently disappearing, searching for the next one based on perception. Although there is vague feedback in his supernatural sense, if he uses all three powers of summoning wind and rain, painting skin, and bewitching, there is a good chance that he can subdue the corpse driver. After eating and wiping it clean, he will be slaughtered. The corpse driver who can mix with the Beggars sect and evil cultivators may not be a good person. However, Xian is unwilling to take any risks. In the next few tens of seconds, Xian seemed to wander around like a wandering soul, observing the disciples of the Beggars sect and the demonic cultivators driving away corpses from afar. In the dark, it looked like everyone was seriously injured, but unfortunately they could still move and even curse. So, it does not meet his requirements. Since you can move around and curse, there is a possibility of violence and murder. These evil cultivators, who knows what hidden cards they have. Rumbling, just as Xian was about to give up. After 7 or 8 twists and turns, he had arrived at a large pond in the city. In the midst of the rocks ahead, there lay a dilapidated body that looked like a corpse. Although it could still twitch slightly, it was obvious that it was on the brink of death due to serious injuries. The external appearance is an old beggar, wearing tattered clothes with 5 brightly colored large pockets sewn together. His limbs are limp, and his body is covered in dirt. It is clear that he has suffered from fractures all over his body and has lost control of his bowel movements. Oh, still a 5-bag elder. It's just that the luck is the worst. I'm almost blown out of the city, and I'm unlucky enough to bump into these rocks. I'm afraid I won't be able to find a good piece of meat all over my body. Xian murmured like this, but still did not step forward. He was still observing in the dark, witnessing with his own eyes the strange green light occasionally shining on the old beggar's body, as if he wanted to use something like internal power to repair his body, but how could it dim every halfway? After multiple attempts, in Xian's perception, the old beggar's internal chi was almost completely extinguished. If you don't take action, you will truly be a corpse. He didn't just want to extract some strange martial arts from that old beggar, intelligence and secrets were what he truly wanted. At the next moment, Xian moved. As he stepped out of the darkness, there was a sudden drizzle and a gentle breeze blowing over the large embankment. The old beggar, who was on his deathbed, was vomiting blood while feeling dazed. Suddenly, he was startled to see a green umbrella above his head, covering the drizzle, and beneath that umbrella, there was clearly a figure of a woman who looked weak. The old beggar's eyes, which were originally filled with unwillingness and resentment, immediately showed an astonishing greed and desire for survival. He kept shouting in his heart, "Hurry, get closer, get closer." The woman under the umbrella indeed leaned in as he wanted, as if to ask him. Without any hesitation, the old beggar's face suddenly turned twisted and ferocious, with crimson eyes. His elderly body underwent a sudden transformation, with twisted muscles bulging, thick and hard dog fur gushing out, and a foul-smelling yellow tooth suddenly elongating and protruding. In the blink of an eye, the old beggar turned into a bald and vicious dog. Jumping up like a wolf, he bit at the woman under the umbrella. When moving, this vicious old dog even deliberately transmitted a message to his ear. "Little girl, I want to thank you for your life-saving kindness." Before he could finish speaking, the old dog had already bitten down. In his anticipation, he would be able to taste fresh and tender meat in his mouth, warm his blood, and help him recover his strength and live to his life. But in the next breath, he only felt that the object at the entrance was incredibly tough, completely unable to tear, clearly a demon skin bag. With a low eyebrow, there was no flesh or blood from a young girl. It was indeed a smooth otter skin. And that green umbrella was even more outrageous, it was a large lotus leaf. Realizing that he had been deceived, the vicious old dog was so angry that his mouth and eyes were crooked. Coincidentally, the last bit of energy in his body was completely depleted, and his foul-smelling body was heavily smashed down. After landing, there was a muffled sound in his body, and there was no good bone left. His mouth vomited continuously, and pus and blood mixed with visceral fragments surged out. This time, the old dog had no spare strength and walked towards his death. Its body, visible to the naked eye, transformed from a bald and vicious dog to a frail old beggar, constantly roaring, "Green Umbrella Girl, the Grey Otter Demon." I never expected Hong Bai to be teased by such an impure spirit before he died. I hate it so much. He should indeed be annoyed. The so-called Green Umbrella Woman is actually a monster made of otters, specializing in seducing beautiful young people and having little ability. Usually, when encountering such monsters, they would turn into rations, one by one. Just as his consciousness was completely blurred, a face from his youth appeared in front of him, and a series of calls came from his ear. "Hong Bai! Hong Bai!" In this call, the old beggar consciously walked like a lantern, recalling his entire life. All secrets, and no omissions. I am Hong Bai, with no regrets for my entire life, only hating that I was not even more shameless in the beginning. If I could abandon all human nature and become a true beast, I wouldn't be unable to build a foundation. I have already entered the Tao, and I have touched the Supreme Tao. I could have lived forever and enjoyed immortality. In this murmur, the old beggar completely swallowed his breath and turned into a puddle of rotten meat. In front of his body, Xian crouched down with a complex expression on his face. Of course, it was not because of the old beggar's last-minute babbling that he sighed. After he used bewitching, the old dog recounted his life. After hearing this, Xian felt that this guy's death was worth it. If it weren't for the extremely fast speed of his final death, Xian would even want to personally take action. Old Hua, originally named Hong Bai, was a born villain. He loved to set fire when he was young and spent his days with mischievous villains. Later, he accidentally burned down his own house, causing his younger brother to become disabled. He felt that he was not a member of the gang, and during times of famine, he encountered the passage of the beggars' sect and voluntarily joined. He also stole all the stored food in his home for the purpose of worshipping the gang. After joining the beggars' sect, Hong Bai obtained a basic skill and worked hard to cultivate it. However, due to his poor talent, he was unable to enter the sect. In the end, he took the risk to cultivate the evil skill Hunyuanju, which required the eradication of emotions and nature. He turned back to his hometown and killed all his parents and younger brothers. Later, when he broke through the situation, he also poisoned his own master and finally truly entered the sect. Afterwards, he changed his name to Hong Bai and identified himself as a person who is not benevolent, filial, or righteous. He only seeks leisure and freedom. So this old dog is almost always doing evil, whether it's practicing evil laws, torturing young children, harvesting and cutting, abusing enemies, raping and plundering, they are all at the forefront. Find Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, and because he had cultivated the most expensive evil skill, he developed the most evil tendencies and endured torment for most of his time every day. His mind became more twisted, but his path did not gain much progress. He wasted most of his life and only became a 5-bag elder in the beggars' sect. However, relying on his high seniority and excellent verbal skills, Old Dog has taken an important position in this operation, so he has hidden many good things on his body. Now naturally, he should be cheaper than me. Of course, the biggest gain is still the memory of this old dog. What is the path of cultivation in this world? What are the various secrets and secrets? Now they all come to my ears. At this moment, thoughts flickered, and upon closer inspection of Xian's eyes, it was evident that most of the previous doubts and confusion had indeed dissipated. At the same time, he has also finished touching the body. With the memory of Hong Bai, he naturally knew the 5 big pockets and all the things hidden in his hidden pockets. Not all of them were taken, but rather picked and picked, taking away some good things without any future problems. For example, what he values the most is a secret book called Dog Beating Stick Technique. It sounds like it has the same name as previous martial arts. It's completely different. The stick technique in this room is simply a ferocious and evil skill. Xian was willing to take it, and there was a reason for it. After packing, Xian stopped staying and wiped out all the marks on his body one by one, then quickly ran away. In the future, whether it is the beggars' sect or the ghosts under Lu Hualong's command who discover the remains of this old dog, they will not notice anything. It should have been like this, and they will know that the loss of many things is only due to the storm. How could one imagine a little peddler who could deceive a cunning and ghostly 5-bag elder from the beggars' sect in such a strange way? P.S. Please follow me and get a monthly pass. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Chapter 7. Daoism 6 Realms. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After successfully touching the body, Xian did not immediately return home, but deliberately slowed down his pace, silently waiting for something. In fact, the common people in Xiantang County are also waiting. The only difference is that Xian has a little more power than ordinary civilians, and now he knows more, so naturally he has one or two more choices. Of course, compared to the two sides fighting, they are no different from ants. And the dust settled earlier than expected. Xianxia took a step to perceive and looked towards the temple area. In the next moment, the soul and meat song, that had been playing for almost an hour suddenly stopped, and then he heard a voice that was both old and young, filled with a sense of indulgence. The 4 spiritual gods of the 10,000 Laws sect, with the most cunning being the eating goo. Lu Daoyu is very obedient to the gods and cunning like ghosts. It was us who chose the wrong person. Now it is a never-ending situation, and we will send Lu County Magistrate some enlightenment. This is the fire of desire for flesh and the snake of spiritual thoughts. If you cannot break through this calamity, your solidified spiritual bodies will be given to me to share equally. If the Taoist friend breaks through, we will all become spiritual food, allowing the Taoist friend to completely stabilize and transform into a mortal realm, without worrying about the outbreak of evil tendencies and the splitting of our hearts and souls. This statement may sound verbose, but in reality, it's finished in the blink of an eye. When the last word fell, the boundary had already undergone a change. All the evil cultivators of the Eternal Life sect cast spells at the same time, summoning clusters of very enchanting flames. The remaining beggars, the corpse chasers, and all the zombies were used as nourishment, and in the blink of an eye, they were completely burned, causing the flames to soar to more than 10 zhang, enveloping Lu Hualong's demonic body. And in this so-called fire of desire for flesh, there suddenly appeared 10 human-headed snakes with slippery crimson bodies, which were transformed by the evil cultivators. They entangled and landed like dragons, attempting to burrow into their bodies through various orifices on their bodies. Xian looked from a distance and quickly moved away with just one glance. That fire. That snake. Triggering flesh and desire in the body one after another, the mind knows that if one looks for a longer time, they will inevitably suffer. It's hard to imagine what level of pollution the enveloped Lu Hualong is facing, but it's clear that he still has the upper hand. This demon county magistrate was even too lazy to respond, only laughing wildly. A goo-eating storm surged out, much more intense than before, with wind and fire clashing, making it difficult to see it clearly. After about 10 breaths, the thunder exploded and a tiger demon burst into the sky with laughter, soaring straight into the clouds. At the same time, this county magistrate issued an unimaginable new policy of benevolence to the entire county. In the future, our county will cancel the cutting of stocks order, replace Tai Sui millet with regular rice grains, and allow children at home to receive an additional portion. This county will inevitably go out, write letters, and offer sacrifices. As soon as this new policy was implemented, the city only endured for an instant, and soon cheers erupted in every neighborhood and alley. Previously, there were children at home who fainted and crawled out of their bodies, causing resentment towards Lu Hualong, the demonic county magistrate. But now all the grievances cannot be dispelled, and instead, they all begin to praise the kindness of Lu Hualong. For a moment, Xiantang County was celebrating with joy and joy. Only Xian could laugh at this moment. He stood in a dark alley, looking up at a huge shadow cruising through the clouds, chewing on the sensory feedback, and then murmured. So this is the realm of transformation. Thoroughly shed the mortal fetus, cut off humanity, transcend vulgarity, and become a spirit demon. In the future, there will be no more county magistrate of the human race, Lu Hualong. All he has is a true goo-eating spirit demon. Is it worth it? At the last thought, Xian also felt amused. Anyone can hear the joy and ease in Lu Hualong's laughter at this moment, and in his opinion, it must be incredibly worthwhile. Of course, there is also good news for Xian, which is that he doesn't have to run away. He was a newcomer and luckily gained some benefits tonight. He urgently needed a peaceful territory to develop and grow. From Hong Bai's self-narration, it can be seen that there is no more suitable place in the nearby territory than Qiantang County. Originally very suitable, just now Lu Hualong announced a new policy of benevolence, which is an unparalleled good territory. As for Lu Hualong, who has completely transformed, why did he do this? Gu Xian, who now knows a lot of common knowledge and secrets of cultivation, thought about it and immediately came up with a terrifying yet reasonable guess. Previously, Lu Hualong had the order to cut off his thigh and supply Tai Sui Gu Zi in order to satisfy his own evil desires and cultivate Tai Sui Gu Bu. Now that he has completely transformed from a non-human race, he possesses extraordinary strength and may have started raising the entire county as a true pig. Delicious and delicious, I also wish to ensure that the county residents have a good mood. Gu Xian did not dwell on the thoughts behind it. At this moment, he didn't even have much anger in his mind. He just glanced at it and picked up the load of goods, swaying back home. Along the way, he gradually digested the cultivation knowledge and the overall situation of the world he had learned from Hong Bai in his mind. Let's first talk about the current changes and political structure of the Great Yuan dynasty. Gu Xian had already inquired a lot before, and Hong Bai's place also had some higher-level gossip. Although the territory of the Great Yuan dynasty was large, it was actually divided into the 4 great khanates below, and those 4 kings had many conflicts with the rulers of the main continent, which they no longer recognized, with continuous civil wars and so on. Moreover, in this world, the power of cultivation is indeed revered by the 10,000 Dharma cult, but there are also many Tao meridians that can resist it. There are suspected forces of extraterrestrial evil gods behind phenomena such as the Eternal Life sect and the Bliss Gate. Or it could be a bloodline holy land such as Dragon Nest, Dragon Palace, Qingxiu, Huagua Mountain, Yin Mountain, etc. Of course, the most crucial thing is the cultivation itself. The so-called practice, for the human race, is the process of obtaining extraordinary powers through various means such as swallowing, imitating, transplanting, mating, luring, etc. As a result, many Tao and Dharma meridians have emerged, each with its own unique characteristics. However, over the long years, it gradually converged into a set of realm systems recognized by all the Tao meridians, collectively known as the 6 realms of Tao transformation. Starting from the initial entering the Tao realm, there have been 5 other realms since then, including building foundations, transforming into the mortal world, connecting with the divine, displaying the sage, and integrating with the Tao. Entering the Tao realm usually refers to incorporating objects or flesh that contain extraordinary Tao energy into the body, and passing through the rejection reaction before entering the Tao. If it cannot be overcome, it is a fatal situation. There are countless people in this world who yearn for cultivation and die in this seemingly inconspicuous first level. Building a foundation realm refers to the process of the body's external forces Tao transforming oneself, such as skin, flesh, organs, bone marrow, etc., all of which will transform into Tao. This will enable cultivators to start possessing many powerful spells, but during Tao transformation, there are countless dangers involved. Any failure in Tao transformation may turn cultivators into demons, making it impossible for them to recover and even more likely to die suddenly. The realm of transmigration is even more dangerous. The power of Tao transformation will blend into every corner of the body. The cultivators will transmigrate from the mortal realm and refine the spiritual realm. At this time, the temperament of most cultivators will undergo some changes, giving rise to various uncontrollable evil tendencies. In severe cases, they will simply split their hearts and souls, enter the fire demon, become a crazy demon, and ravage the world. As for the 3 realms in the future, they are too high to be known by the only beggars sect cultivators like Hong Bai, so Gu Xian is not aware of the details at this time. As he digested these, he also took the opportunity to think of the cultivators he has seen today. Demon County Magistrate Lu Hualong, Eternal Life Cult Xiaxiu, Hong Bai, and the Carver. Gu Xian muttered, then realized something. The eyebrows furrowed slightly, and the complexion became somewhat unsightly. Practitioners in this world. It seems that regardless of whether it's high-end mainstream, low-level, or more sinister, the ultimate result is to become non-human. Or, to put it another way, the so-called Dao Hua Lu Jing is fundamentally the process of transforming from human to non-human existence. When he murmured to this point, Xian's mind was filled with the remains of Hong Bai. Before his death, he was human, and after his death, he barely had a human form, but his head had been stretched and twisted a bit, resembling an old dog. His nails were thick and long, and his body hair was vigorous, clearly considered demonized. Hong Bai recounted. He practiced the evil technique Hunyuan Ju and entered the Dao realm, but the technique was only an aid. What truly promoted him to the Dao realm was a nail-sized demon dog with flesh and blood. His rejection reaction that night was extremely terrifying. If he couldn't survive, he would directly turn into a demon rabid dog and be taken by other beggars sect cultivators to practice the evil technique. Here, it also involves a major secret of the beggars sect. This lower-level Dao lineage has been feeding demon dogs for generations, and all the strange martial arts, weapons, and treasures in the sect are related to the demon dog clan. So, everything in the lower level of the beggars sect's lineage is actually bestowed by demon dogs. Just like the powerful existence of Lu Hualong, if we investigate the root cause, it will also fall on the goo-eating spirit god. Looking back, it is the Wanfa sect that claims to have the existence of all gods. Looking at the eternal life cult that can compete with the 10,000 laws cult, it should be like this when looking for the book garden www.zhaozhuyuan.com. If I set foot on the path of cultivation, I cannot escape the fate of becoming a non-human demon. Thoughts surged here, and Xian had already stood in front of his own courtyard. The joyful expression on his face, which had emerged from successfully touching the corpse and gaining a new understanding of cultivation, had already disappeared completely. After all, it is a soul from a previous life on earth, and the imprint of the human race is indelible. He is extremely willing to gain extraordinary power through cultivation. Ascending to become an immortal and enduring for a long time is even more wonderful. But, turn into a demon. But it's another matter. Especially after observing the example of Lu Hualong carefully, Xian keenly sensed that the transformation from Dao to non-human existence was not only a physical change, but also a complete transformation in the depths of his heart and soul. Even, it can be said to be a change involving the essence of blood and race. Nalu County Magistrate, originally a human, was raised by his parents and also grew up among the human race. After practicing, his body transformed into a tiger demon, and he not only ate humans and raised ghosts, but also developed a bad habit of exclusively eating human flesh. With great progress in his path and complete transformation, he was even more delighted to have tens of thousands of people in Xiantang County captive like pigs, dogs, and livestock. At this point, I'm afraid that if I bring his parents in front of him, the outcome will not be good either. It's already a non-human realm. The transformation of the Tao into 6 realms, and the transformation into the mortal world is just like this. What kind of terrifying scene should the future of the integration of the divine, the manifestation of the holy, and the Tao be? One Fa Jiao is the mainstream of the secular world, and the greatest practice of Dao Mai is still like this, while the other Dao Mai may be even more severe. At this moment, Xian didn't have the joy of seeing the opportunity to practice at the beginning. He felt as if he had been watered by pots of ice water, and he felt icy cold to the bone. Chapter 8. I want to accept all things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. If it is only due to cultivation that the mortal body is alienated and transformed into a demonic and immortal body, Xian will not have much resistance. From the example seen tonight, it can be seen that alienation is clearly the most fundamental essence. Alas, I don't want to one day insist on eating human flesh and drinking human blood to make a living, and my temperament will also become distorted. I don't know if all the cultivation paths in the world are like this. It shouldn't be so. There should be a serious practitioner of qi refining. Xian sighed and carried the burden back home. Just as he was feeling very desperate, suddenly the lights in his own house ahead lit up, and then the wooden door creaked slightly open. Under the flickering oil lamp light, a bright and clean room appeared, which was different from when he left home. In the corner of the room, there stood a pretty young woman who looked over eagerly, obviously waiting for the praise of the owner Xian. At first, Xian had no such mood. But at the moment he saw the broomstick spirit, which was the sister of the Bai family, a spiritual light exploded in his mind. Subsequently, a rather excited thought burst forth. Yeah, who said I have no other way to go? Before I woke up, apart from the talent of extraordinary perception, I had no extraordinary ability, almost like a weak human commoner. Tonight, I still gained so many benefits from the 5 bags Elder Hong Bai of the Beggars sect through 3 supernatural powers. Summoning wind and rain, painting skin, and bewitching. My second talent is for recruitment, but after successfully enchanting, I can absorb extraordinary powers into my body. There are more than one, and there is no such thing as rejection reaction, even if it is a temporary ability. Isn't this a path? Thinking of this, Xian suddenly became excited again. His current cultivation knowledge comes from the evil practices of the Beggars sect, which are not very authoritative. But this old dog has lived for so many years, so there should be no mistakes or omissions. From his memory, it can be inferred that all practitioners, regardless of which lineage they come from, whether it is the 10,000 Laws sect, the Eternal Life sect, or those bloodline holy sites, as well as a large number of unorthodox sects at the lowest level. Without exception, they must pass the exclusion of aliens level. If they cannot pass it, they will not be able to enter the Tao and release extraordinary powers in the form of mortals. But tonight, there is clearly an anomaly. Xian immediately realized that his talent was not only unparalleled, but could also be considered a rare thing that goes against common sense. Among the various talents known to Hong Bai, there is no such eerie one. I'm afraid he doesn't have the original body either. What he has is probably just charm. Perhaps I brought this magical power of reverse recruitment. However, there is still a lot to confirm, such as whether my charm collection is only targeted at female spirits, or is it simply killing all things. She was originally lascivious and only focused on collecting strange and bizarre objects such as the Lady Zhu painting, without any other strange objects as a reference. Besides, are all the supernatural powers that are replenished only temporarily stored in the body? Can I borrow those supernatural powers to cultivate? Accompanied by thoughts surging out, Xian could no longer bear it. Put down the peddler's burden and slammed the door shut. Immediately, under the frightened gaze of Bai's sister, this servant rudely approached and grabbed her, dragging her towards the bed. It's all so impossible, there isn't even a table in his shabby room. Fortunately, Xian quickly let go again, and within such a brief few breaths, he had completed the first verification of his innate abilities. I cannot replenish the opponent's extraordinary power inside until I unleash my charm and succeed. Obviously, he grabbed the hand of the broomstick spirit and attempted to directly extract supernatural energy from her body, but failed. At this moment, he did not acquire spells such as the Cleanliness Curse or Dust Separation Curse, nor did he have a strong desire to sweep the room or clean himself, even though his whole body was dirty. The first test yielded results, and Xian was determined to continue, completely ignoring the sorrowful expression on the young woman's face. He drove her back to the Soul House and forbade her from coming out again tonight. After settling down properly and confirming safety, Xian sat on a clean bed and sorted out the harvest of tonight one by one, totaling 5 things. They are a foul-smelling stone covered in particles on the surface, a green bamboo stick covered in tooth marks, a palm-sized golden scale, and 2 thin human skin books. 5 things all have a significant origin. The Isher is called dog treasure, which is conceived within the body of a demon dog secretly provided by the Beggars sect. It has an extremely foul smell, but it has a relatively pure demon dog power. If there is the beggar's sex supporting evil skill, anyone can be promoted to the Dao realm by swallowing this item. Hong Bai wears it on his body to suppress signs of demonization, otherwise he may transform into a demon dog and go berserk at any time. The green bamboo staff is called the dog beating stick, which is an exclusive weapon of the beggar's sect. Casting it requires a lot of effort. You need to first find 99 crazy dogs in the wilderness who have eaten human flesh, and then use the top-quality Junshan bamboo to absorb their essence and blood in order to obtain one. It cannot be claimed by elders with more than 5 bags. Scales are the most precious, coming from a dragon demon with a high blood concentration. As for those 2 books, one is the beggar's sex dog beating staff technique, and the other is called 18 Dragon Subduing Palms. It is the reward for the beggar's sex Hangzhou Road branch's mobilization to assist the Eternal Life sect in besieging the 2 county magistrates, Fuyang and Xiantang. It is said that the leader of the Eternal Life cult, who risked offending the dragon nest, personally went to the Qiantang River to catch dragons. This unlucky person was originally a human race, but luckily got the opportunity to enter the Dao and had already been promoted to the foundation building realm. Unfortunately, he couldn't hold on and became possessed by the demon, completely losing his intelligence and becoming a dragon demon, ravaging the Qiantang River. Hobbied to capsize passing boats and devour travelers who fell into the river. Captured by evil cultivators and subjected to various forms of abuse and experimentation, this new and eerie martial art finally emerged. Once cast, it has the power of subduing dragons. Of course, it's just a boast. Unable to subdue the true dragon, there are only some malevolent powers that exist, and they also have restraint against some snakes, insects, and monsters. In order to avoid accidental loss, the helmsman personally carried half of the dragon corpse and the original martial arts, and also printed several remaining books. They were divided and given to several capable subordinates. Hong Bai, who had been in power for generations, also distributed one remaining book, a dragon scale, with only the first 3 palms on the book. Beggar's Sect Hangzhou Road Branch. Everyone thought participating in this matter was a great achievement. Afterwards, the dragon corpse and martial arts were presented to the gang, and the entire helm was blessed. The helmsman believed that he could use this merit to compete for the position of deputy gang leader. Who would have expected the ultimate result to be complete annihilation, chicken flying eggs? Unfortunately, the newly born eerie martial art of 18 Dragon Subduing Palms had not yet had a chance to exert its power, and it became a remnant, with only the last 3 slaps falling into the hands of Xian. Originally, Xian thought that these strange objects and techniques were stolen for nothing. Because no matter which one you use, you have to go through the exclusion level, and even if you pass it, you cannot avoid being demonized. Hong Bai and the beggars didn't mind, and before his death, they were clamoring to give up human nature early and become real animals. However, Xian didn't want to do that and had already decided to give up. But I never expected that now with the twists and turns of the road, hope came again. Whether it's right or wrong, success or failure depends on this one move. When this thought arose, Xian had already begun to take action. He was naturally cautious and did not immediately release his charm with all his might. Instead, he first pointed his finger on the green bamboo stick and slowly released about 1/10 of the charm. At the beginning, there was no movement, and Xian was not disappointed. He simply increased his strength. When the charm reaches 1/10, a mutation suddenly arises. The strange green bamboo stick, as if it had given birth to wisdom, clung tightly to Xian's fingers and attempted to swallow the enchanting fragrance inside Xian's body. This scene happened, and an uncontrollable surprise appeared on Xian's face. He was almost subconscious, unable to tolerate the green bamboo stick to suck too much, and instead activated the power of picking and replenishing. In the blink of an eye, Xian felt as if there was a bottomless vortex inside his body, and began to swallow the things touched by his fingertips. Just a few breaths, the green bamboo stick covered in demonic canine teeth suddenly trembled, and then the demonic radiance that existed on it completely dimmed. Go and see, the path has turned into a withered yellow bamboo stick that could break at any moment. At this moment, Xian's body was clearly filled with a strange green energy. When induced, the supernatural force transformed by this qi also emerges. Beat the dog. After using this special force, any stick-like object can cause significant damage to dogs. If combined with the dog-beating stick technique, it can kill demons such as dog demons. Almost immediately, Xian's face was filled with a smile. He felt as if a person who had fallen into the desert had suddenly received a shower of rain, overjoyed. Although he also sensed that the strange force inside his body would dissipate within 24 hours, it was still a great joy. Surprisingly, it can really be. I'm not just Nandaji, I've found a new path, maybe even my own path of cultivation. Because his knowledge and experience were far from enough, Xian dared not say die for all. But one thing he can be certain of is that he will no longer have to tremble as a mortal in this terrifying demon world. The path he was searching for, although still vague, was enough to give him the power to protect himself. In his joyful thoughts, Xian's gaze quickly fell on the other two strange objects on the bed. More experiments. It's starting. I don't know how long it has been, late at night, in Qiantang County, the Gu family. The room, which had already been cleaned up by the broom spirit, is now plunged into a storm of chaos. In the small shack, at least a dozen demonic dogs appeared, thin and bald, with drooling and bloodshot eyes. They seemed to be driven by some kind of will and rushed towards a figure in the center of the room. And that figure, holding only a withered yellow bamboo stick, then exhibited an exquisite and extremely vicious stick technique. Although it was the initial practice, there was no trace of smoke or fire. In a casual manner, the staff's shadow flickered and half of the demon dog's shadow was killed. The remaining half continued to pounce, but Xian took away the bamboo stick at this moment and lightly slapped it from his waist. Suddenly, a ferocious and monster dragon phantom surged out of the air, with a dragon mouth opened and swallowed the remaining demon dog clean. The storm fades away, everything is peaceful. Xian looked around and then self-evaluated the supernatural power he had previously used. Even if the old villains of the beggar's sect, such as Hong Bai, wear dog treasures and use green bamboo sticks to perform the dog-beating staff technique, they still need several months of diligent cultivation before they can wield their arms and fingers like me. And the dragon-subduing palm insisted on changing to another evil cultivation, first incorporating the dragon scale into the body, and then enduring the rejection reaction. It was only after years of diligent cultivation of the secret script of the 18 dragon-subduing palms that it was possible to cast it with ease like I did. As for why is this happening? In a flickering thought, Xian looked at his own skin and palms again. No change. Still belonging to human hands and skin. One of the common knowledge in the realm of cultivation is that using extraordinary powers requires paying a negligible price. For example, demonization is no longer a cost, but a sign of omen. Not to mention anything else, he was as strong as the demon county magistrate Lu Hualong. When he exerted his power, his body also transformed from a human race to a goo-eating spirit demon. And when Hong Bai, the old dog, exhausted his last bit of strength and tried to eat some fresh flesh and blood, he also honestly transformed into a demon dog and jumped up to eat people. Those corpse hunters, when casting spells, also have no human appearance. It can be seen that this is consensus. But at this moment, Xian, who had been tinkering for a long time, did not produce any foreign objects such as claws or scales, and there was no foul odor emanating from his body. This scene made him feel very happy. After conducting numerous experiments, he has confirmed some things and made some speculations. I first seduced the supernatural foreign body, and then performed the picking and replenishing, which is actually a process of subduing. For these supernatural powers, I am the one who ascends to the upper level by visiting Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. They cannot resist at all and can only slowly dissipate. Before that, they will be driven by me without me paying any price. The cultivator next to you, regardless of the type of Dao and method, may only be able to use one type of supernatural power alone. And I seem to have no taboos, more is better. And after use, it will not be demonized. Gu Xian's tone is still somewhat uncertain, but various signs indicate that his speculation should be true. Of course, with just these words, Gu Xian will still be very happy, but he won't have the great mood of this moment. After all, these supernatural powers were actually borrowed by him. Whether it's long or short, it will eventually dissipate. Afterwards, he will transform into a frail and powerless ordinary salesman. What truly made Gu Xianpa feel a bit ecstatic was what he had just felt in that moment. 12 hours have passed now, and the 3 supernatural powers he had previously acquired, namely, summoning wind and rain, painting skin, and bewitching, have long dissipated without a trace. But at this moment, Gu Xian was still extremely excited, with some kind of expectation, and moved his thoughts, shouting softly. The wind is coming. Rain is coming. In an instant, in this shabby room, a faint breeze blew up that could only make the lights flicker slightly. Then, Gu Xian, who looked up, felt a slight wetness on his face, no more than a thin layer of sweat. But Gu Xian, who had successfully verified it again, couldn't help but laugh at the moment. It's done, it's really done. This is my path of cultivation. There are countless wonders and monsters in this world that can be used by me. P.S. 4,000 words, I am trying my best to speed up and increase the volume. Chapter 9. Fox Prostitute in Liuying Lane. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After much turmoil tonight, Gu Xian discovered a very rare and likely exclusive path of cultivation. I am even more surprised to see that this path may have a bright future, at least for now it seems very promising. Originating from the final verification. The 3 Dao Qi powers he had previously collected and replenished dissipated after use. But when his blessed soul called out again, he miraculously called out some more. Although it was much weaker than the original version, it could be said that there was no one left, but this extremely weak supernatural force was clearly permanently controlled by Gu Xian. What's even more surprising is that not only do they summon wind and rain, but also the 2 supernatural powers of bewitching and painting are clearly present. Of course, it is also as weak as wind and rain, almost imperceptible. But can these lost and regained powers be strengthened again through cultivation? As this thought rose, Gu Xian immediately began to perceive it in detail. Not too long has passed, and the answer and corresponding guess have emerged simultaneously. No way. These supernatural powers seem to have become some kind of bloodline divine power solidified in my body, and I can call them out to use, but the total amount is limited. Once used, they will dissipate and need to wait for them to coalesce again. No matter how strong they are. It's like I've made a wild goose crossing and plucking hair from these borrowed supernatural powers. I am not a cultivator by nature. I have no martial arts skills in my body, nor have I ever incorporated anything into the Tao, so naturally I cannot allow the power of supernatural powers to constantly multiply. When Gu Xian realized these things, his face couldn't help but darken with joy. The original version of calling for wind and rain was not very powerful, but it only brought a refreshing rain and wind, covering a dam. After I was replenished, I was weakened to the same appearance as before. When I call again, washing my face is not enough. Is there any more useless supernatural force in the world than this? If nothing unexpected happens, after the 2 supernatural powers of beating the dog and subduing the dragon that I currently possess have dissipated, I will also extract 1.2% of the supernatural powers from them and solidify them in my body. At that time, it is estimated that only a dozen ordinary wild dogs can be beaten, and 1 snake, insect, grass, and lizard can be surrendered. It would be embarrassing. Gu Xian muttered to himself. In my mind, I couldn't help but produce corresponding comical scenes. But soon he became happy again and said with hope. Even if it is even weaker, it is still an extraordinary power that is permanently fixed in my body, naturally considered a divine power possessed by me, Gu Xian. It's not impossible for me to grow even stronger. I can constantly replenish more strange things and monsters, gathering various supernatural powers in one. If my luck is good, I can fortunately replenish a larger one, such as the beggar's sect treasure, divine dog jade staff, that Hong Bai's old dog has always been thinking of. The supernatural powers that can be plundered should not be so miserable anymore. Of course, excessive waste and frequent replenishment are also not allowed. After a few twists and turns of thought, Gu Xian regained his confidence. He tasted the wonders of extraordinary things for the first time. Although he didn't have enough knowledge, he still felt that he had a great future, and there were many thoughts surging in his mind. He racked his brains to plan various experiments to be carried out in the future, thinking about how to make good use of his talents and become stronger. Other ideas have not been decided yet, only one plan has been decided first. Shelter. Try to accommodate as many strange things and monsters as possible, and be more beneficial without any taboos. I wanted to doze off and came to the pillow, almost missing out on this great opportunity. Gu Xian had originally planned to continue conducting experiments to see if he could collect more before the two strong supernatural powers dissipated in his body. However, he suddenly realized that there was an opportunity in front of him to accommodate more strange objects and monsters. He strolls around Xiantang County during the day, rhythmically watching battles and fighting, just to gather intelligence and then search for spies and organize sales. After a lot of tinkering, I almost forgot about the main matter. Despite the scenes that occurred at the Gu-eating spirit temple today, with so many witnesses, there seems to be no valuable intelligence or secrets. But Gu Xian is very different. From the place of Hong's injustice, he has gained a strong insight. He was just immersed in his personal cultivation and forgot about it for a moment. Now that I have realized it, I dare not delay any longer. Although that raw material is valuable, it also has timeliness. If it is delayed for too long, it may not be worth it. Thinking of this, Gu Xian quickly took paper and pen, and drew 7 or 8 women's pictures, with completely different appearances and temperament, tall, short, fat and thin, everything in one go. As for the commonality, it is ugliness. One reason is that his current painted skin power is extremely weak, and the other reason is that both his original body and Gu Xian's painting skills are very poor. But after all, it's a disguise, no matter how bad it is, it's better than nothing. Gu Xian stuffed these leather bags into his arms, and immediately reached out to catch the broomstick essence. He instructed him to be a good caretaker and quickly left the door in the deep night. As soon as he left, the pretty young woman drifted out of the soul house. She was originally happy, thinking that the master was still stubborn and soft-hearted, and then released her. Unexpectedly, as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw a room full of chaos and chaos. Her snow-white and delicate face visibly turned red, indicating that she was angry. If Gu Xian were still here at this time, she would inevitably be scolded by her. Even if she dared not curse, she would still slander Gu Xian from the bottom of her heart. As for now, she dares to tidy up while whispering. He is a reckless young man with no certainty, even a wild boar wouldn't be able to arch like this. The house I just cleaned up. Gu Xian left his home again, retreated into the darkness, and began to change his skin bag after searching for a dark alley. Due to the amazing fighting just now, people in Xiantang County are now in a state of panic and hiding at home. Few people go out, making it very convenient for Gu Xian to operate. Before long, the young peddler disappeared. Coming out of the alley was a short and skinny woman. With the water and moonlight in the stinky ditch beside her, Gu Xian looked at her current appearance. Her skin was withered and yellow, her hair was like weeds, her mouth and eyes were crooked, she was really ugly. The true power of painting can turn Xian into a beautiful woman, but now he only has a weakened version, so it's not easy to be too picky. Besides, such a clumsy contouring technique appears even more authentic. Xian affirmed himself while following his original memory and heading towards a territory called Liuying Lane. There was still plenty of time left, so he walked like an ordinary person without using any supernatural power. On the way, it is to continue to ponder and consider whether there are any flaws in this impulsive plan and whether it is feasible. After awakening his original talent, he became anxious and entered the path, which was not enough to be cautious enough. He accepted invitations from multiple meticulous organizations. He thought that after sensing and prying into some intelligence secrets, he could compare the conditions one by one and choose the best organization to join, which was a bit reckless. Even if he really peeks into some secret, he may end up being forcibly recruited when he officially contacts the first organization. If he doesn't comply, he could easily die. In this world, practitioners are all non-human, so naturally they will not show any kindness. Although I am very different, I still need to be cautious and not let go of my true body. After admonishing himself, Xianren was already standing at the entrance of Liuying Alley. Before entering, two iron tower-like figures suddenly flashed into the dark corner. They were two big men dressed in short skirts, both with muscle lumps and fierce faces. Each forehead protruded like a flesh horn, and their bloodshot eyes stared at Xian at the same time. They possess supernatural powers, but cannot be considered cultivators. They are the blood bull slaves, cultivated by the fox tribe to drive them. Cheap and easy to obtain, it can be seen everywhere in the countless fox tribe settlements throughout the Great Yuan dynasty. The two ox slaves, upon seeing Xian behind the painted skin, were initially stunned and soon burst into laughter, driving away with a resounding voice. Where did the ugly woman come from? Go ahead and leave here quickly. Although our Liuying Alley is not as good as the brothels in Dadu and slightly inferior to the tiled houses and railings in the city, we would never accept women like you. If you really want to eat this bowl of pork belly rice, you may have to go to those brothels and black houses, and the rest are boat prostitutes and so on. I'm afraid no one will want you. These words caught Xian's ear, and his heart immediately ignited. Obviously, he was mistaken by these two watchdog dogs for a woman who came to apply for a prostitute's job, and even made sarcastic remarks. Xian recalled the memory of Hong Bai for a while, and after weighing it, he suddenly took action. A pair of skinny-looking palms suddenly protruded, like dragons out of the sea, grabbing the hands of the two great men. The strength of the dragon-slaying force was slightly revealed, and the two of them, who were almost pinched off, immediately wanted to howl, but the strict rules forced them to grit their teeth and quickly bite out a mouthful of blood. The two of them exchanged a glance and saw the surprise and meaning in each other's eyes. These ugly women were practicing the Dragon Clan evil law. Just as the two of them were subconsciously about to summon someone for help, Xian's changed and sharp voice came to their ears. Visiting is a guest, whether I am beautiful or ugly. Besides, I came here to sell a piece of intelligence that your master had long wanted to know. If you too delay the proper business, you may be pulled to breed. I have heard that even the strongest man in the world, as long as he enters the fox mother's tomb, at least one more stick of incense, there will be no more drop of essence and blood in his body, and he must leak a clean one. Two words fell in my ears, and the two ox slaves heard something terrifying, their sturdy bodies trembling violently. Suddenly becoming obedient, he competed to lead the way for Xian. This scene once again confirmed that Hong Bai's experience was indeed effective. Qingqiu Fox Clan. It is one of the well-known bloodline holy sites with great influence, and even many fox ancestors have corresponding spiritual deities within the Wan Fa sect. The fox tribe has strongholds in various places, making it convenient to carry out various activities. And Liuying Lane is one of the lowest-level strongholds of the fox tribe in Qiantang County. It is openly engaged in the business of skin and meat, but also secretly responsible for gathering information about the world, news, and so on. Hong Bai had done business with them before. These evil foxes, dressed in human skin, caught human women practicing evil methods. A few of them accidentally ran out and were caught by Hong Bai and a group of beggars. They caught them and brought them to their doorstep, receiving a large reward. Of course, in the end, not a single copper coin could be taken away, and it quickly consumed the belly of the fox demons. The fox prostitute who had previously invited the original body to become a meticulous detective was also wandering in this alley. While the original body was carrying a peddler's burden, she bought him a comb and a bronze mirror, and noticed that he had some talent, so she casually recruited him. Now that Xian remembered, he immediately guessed that the fox prostitute was ill-intentioned. Entering the alley, Xian immediately smelled complex odors that were both fishy, smelly, and fragrant, pretending to look around casually. Without any surprise, each scene was unbearable, with scenes of skin and flesh entangled and rolling in the eyes, accompanied by melodies such as moans and roars. Although Xian came from Earth in his past life and experienced the entertainment explosion, he has already witnessed many beautiful bodies. The fox prostitutes I caught a glimpse of just now are all considered beauties, each with their own advantages. It's strange how business can be so good. At the same time, it also made Xian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. The fighting scenes in Qiantang County tonight are so terrifying. This group of people is still calm, still coming to seek pleasure, which is also rare. I'm afraid I've been completely mesmerized. In speculation, he also quietly activated extraordinary perception. After a few breaths, combined with Hong Bai's narration, Xian immediately came to a conclusion. The so-called fox prostitutes were originally from the human race, but later became alienated due to the cultivation of the fox tribe's evil laws. Almost all of them are in the entering Dao realm and are not stable. The cost is terrifying. If they cannot continue to replenish their essence and blood, these dozens of fox prostitutes will either die suddenly or lose their intelligence and turn into crazy fox demons. Moreover, their healing ability is far inferior to mine. The last thought was the reason why Xian chose Liuying Lane as his first trading territory. Although he has experience with Hong Bai and disguises himself with his painted skin, he also possesses two abilities: fighting dogs and subduing dragons. After consulting Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com, his combat power is much stronger than that of the 5 bags of Hong Bai in the beggar sect. But be cautious, there won't be any mistakes in total. Even if he is caught by fox prostitutes, he can still arouse temptation and then turn around to kill. Upon reflection, it is indeed extremely safe. Quickly, Xian caught sight of the owner of Liuying Lane, who, beyond most people's expectations, was not a charming middle-aged Sun Yang. But rather a young woman with a slender figure, walking like a weak willow, affectionate eyebrows and eyes, and a hint of melancholy in her eyes. It seemed like she was in a hurry, and the fragrant sweat slightly wetted the thin veil on her body, immediately revealing endless temptation. Almost all men, upon first seeing her, cannot help but feel pity and desire to explore her stories, understand her intentions, and win her joy. Of course, Xian is not included in this. After seeing someone, he immediately remembered a few words leaked out by Hong Bai during his self-narration. The fox demon in Liuying Lane must have come from an extremely expensive background. She is probably a woman from a big family, and for some reason, she couldn't bear to think about it. Instead of following and practicing some of the peace techniques and spiritual gods in the 10,000 Laws sect, she went to refine the techniques of the Qingqiu fox clan, which is the most dangerous and terrifying lineage of the heart-eating fox. The little ladies looked weak and tender, making people want to be under their bodies and cherish them. TSK, but if she took off her skin, her appetite would be so great that she could eat hundreds of people overnight. At this moment, Xian suddenly felt a great sense of horror in his heart, because his automatically maintained extraordinary perception gave extremely terrifying feedback at this moment. In a daze, he seemed to see a figure emitting a strong aroma, incredibly graceful and exquisite, wriggling over, covering everything, wanting to engulf Xian from inside out.